When we move to outside of normative logic and normative debate, and this is not something I made up, it's common in philosophy. It's common to talk about meta questions, meta logic, meta mathematics, meta ethics, meta physics. You can't just arbitrarily say, well, you can't ask those questions. There's no such thing as those questions. And a lot of atheists will do that. Be like, that's not a valid question. Says who? Says you just arbitrarily say you can't ask questions about meta logic. We began this discussion by looking at the meta-logical argument of St. John Damascus, showing that to argue against the laws of logic assumes the laws of logic. So it's just arbitrary for them to say you can't ask metalogical, metaphysical questions. That's, again, setting the bar at a certain level from the outset, right? You're cutting off what types of evidence you will accept. The Procrustean bed. I will only accept physical evidence because physicalism is true. Well, we're here to debate physicalism. We are coming to the table saying that there's an immaterial invariant conceptual God that we want to argue for. And you're going to say, atheist, in response, you're going to say, well, but you can't prove it just by saying that there's other types of things. But that's correct. We're not proving it by saying that there's other types. What we're showing is that you don't even believe that. You don't believe that everything is proven in the same way. So if you don't believe that, and you will allow for other types of argumentation to exist for things that are not material, that are conceptual, then we've just shown that you have illogically and invalidly limited the scope of evidence from the outset to ensure that you can only accept and will only accept physical objects and empirical objects and data for empirical objects. And we can show that that's incoherent and inconsistent on your own grounds. And that's what Bahnsen's about to do in the next point.
In such cases, one does not do anything like walking to the pantry and looking inside for the crackers. There are thousands of existence or factual questions, and they are not at all answered in the same way in each case. Just think of the differences in argumentation and types of evidence used by biologists, grammarians, physicists, mathematicians, lawyers, logicians, mechanics, merchants, and artists.
Is all that solved in the same way? Do you just go and look in a microscope to solve every one of those issues in all those various fields? Obviously not. And no atheist would actually literally say that unless they're just completely insane. No materialist really thinks that. So they will allow for all kinds of different evidences, like in mathematics, right? Advanced mathematics, really high level math, or these other fields, computer science, etc. They'll allow for a lot of this abstract stuff that's not like going to just looking in the microscope and seeing what's there, right? So not all things are proven in the same way. So this is a really basic philosophic blunder that they all make.
It should be obvious that the type of evidence which one looks for in existence or factual claims will be determined by the field of discussion, and especially by the metaphysical nature of the entity mentioned in the claim under question.
You heard me say this very thing to Dillahunty and to JF. If the type of being that I'm arguing for is invariant and conceptual, then there's no way that I can give you a physical make the podium float type of proof for that being, because that type of being is not a physical being. Does that make sense? Do you see? So the atheist is literally saying, give me physical evidence for the immaterial being or I won't accept it. What? You don't do that for other things. You don't say, give me physical evidence of the number 7 or I won't believe in the number 7. Give me physical evidence of the law of non-contradiction or I won't believe in the law of non-contradiction. No, they don't do that because they're inconsistent, because they try to set the bar from the outset as to what type of evidence will be accepted. And they have to have the crackers in the pantry fallacy to assume that all things are proven in the same way to start the debate with that nonsense.
Dr. Stein's remarked that the existence of God is answered, the question of the existence of God is answered in the same way as any other factual question, mistakenly reduces the theistic question to the same level as a box of crackers in the pantry, which we will hereafter call the crackers in the pantry fallacy.